FBA fees climbing, I'm losing my grip. Storage costs rising, they'll never let me skip. Refunds I'm eating, returns pile up too. Oh, Amazon, what else will you do? I look at my dashboard, my profits erased. My margins are gone, it's a slap in the face. Prime Day's a promise, but it's such a race. How much will I make if I'm replaced? It's a cruel, cruel number. Fees keep climbing, profits torn asunder. Oh, it's cruel, the sellers wonder how to survive when the margins go under. It's a cruel, cruel number. Every month it's something new to plunder. Oh, it's cruel, it's no wonder we're stuck in this game, the algorithm's thunder.
Yo, Amazon's back, and they got a new scheme. Reimbursement slashed, it's every seller's dream. They're digging deep, taking more from the pot. Let's break it all down, expose what they got. March 25, it's a policy drop. They say manufacturing costs, but we know it's a flop. Give us your cogs, they're demanding the price. But if you don't, they'll estimate nice. Nice for them, not for you. Watch a payout shrink. That comprehensive evil is a corporate wing. Lost in the warehouse, damaged on the floor. Now they pay you pennies, not a cent more. Fees on the rise, profits on the run. They don't lift a finger, but they pocket the fun. We're fair! They shout while they cut our shares. Amazon math, man, it's full of errors. Fees, taking our dough. They're stacking the deck, and it's sellers who owe. Reimbursement? Nah, they're taking us down, but we're still here, we don't mess around. Fees, straight to the top. Amazon's game, it'll never stop. Margins tight, but we keep the grind. Sellers unite, we're one of a kind.
I try to sell my product on Amazon, thought it'd be a breeze. But little did I know I'd be stuck with seller support disease. They never seem to solve my problems, just give me the runaround. I'm tired of waiting on hold. My patience is wearing thin, I'll never be found. Amazon seller support, you suck, you suck, you suck. I can't get no satisfaction. I'm out of luck, out of luck, out of luck. You don't care about my business, just trying to make a buck. Amazon seller support, you suck, you suck, you suck.
This one's for the sellers on the grind, getting left on red, wasting all their time. I hit up support, got an auto reply. Thanks for your patience, man, I wanna cry. Inventory lost, my margins are toast. Reps playing tag like the Casper the Ghost. They pass me around, it's a never-ending game. Nobody takes action, everybody shifts blame. My ASIN's down, I'm out of the race. They say they'll escalate, yo, what a disgrace. Amazon seller support, you're breaking my heart. No answers, no fixes, just tearing me apart. Hours in the queue, stuck in the dark. Amazon seller support, you're missing the mark.
Amazon game plan, that is the key. Seller central dashboard, that's where I be. Analyze the funnel, see what we lack, then we optimize. Sellers know it's a fact. I get it poppin', you know that it's lit. Climbing the rankings, ain't no room to quit. I check the data, they notice the stats. I keep the method, that's how you adapt. Metrics are showing, you know it's our cap. Amazon sellers, it's time to react. I'm about that action, I do this with passion. I got them like, whoa, what is this? Huh, whoa.
I don't know, dude. I think everybody's just buying stuff based on reviews and badges or whatever. They don't even know who we are. These customers don't even know the name of my brand, but they keep clicking add to cart like it's part of the plan. They see that Amazon badge and think it's all grand, but yo, they don't even know the name of my brand.
Click, scroll, build your store. Amazon's waiting, what you waiting for? Brand it loud, make it shine. Steven's here to drop the rhyme. Blue tiles, banners, plug and play. Your storefront's live, let's sell a day. Now listen up, I'm Steven Pope, Amazon guru, I'll help you cope. Step 1, get get that trademark stamped. Without brand registry, your Amazon cramped. Head to Seller Central, log in quick. Manage stores tab, yeah, that's the trick. Upload your logo, flex that style. You're about to make Jeff Bezos smile. Where pick a template, marquee or grid. Drop your tiles like a branding whiz. Hero image, big and bold. This store's gonna glitter like digital gold. Flex, grow, build your store. Amazon's waiting, what you waiting for? Brand it loud, make it shine. Steven's here to drop the rhyme. Blue tiles, banners, plug and play. Your storefront's live, let's sell today. Yo. In the trenches of the Amazon game, trying to survive while it's driving me insane. Nobody warns you, they just claim it's passive income. Nah, it's pain. I'm sitting at a birthday, laughing, chilling, next to a newbie Amazon seller spilling. She's like, Prime so smooth, it's a killer. Then tried to sell, now she's stuck in a thriller. Finding products, yeah, that's the first grind. Scrolling Alibaba, losing my mind. Sample suck, manufacturers decline. I'm like, dang, how's anyone doing this fine? Ship it in, pay for the bubble wrap, but they ship glass bottles in padded crap. Now I got hot sauce leaks, refund stacked, customers pissed. Man, I'm under attack. Amazon's a beast, it's a fight, no peace. From SEO to PPC, the hustle don't cease. Think it's passive? Nah, you better increase your tolerance for chaos or face defeat. Trademark wars, brand registry's a scam. They banned my brand, now I'm in a jam. Listings yanked, products ranked and tanked. Lost dogs in the catalog, my account shanked. Now let's talk ads, it's a rabbit hole. 1,000 hours deep, man, it's taking my soul. Weekly negations, bulk sheets for control. Excel's my new weapon, but it's taking its toll. SEO's no joke, keywords in the game. All text, A+ content, playing insane. Lifestyle shots, avatars for fame, but the CTR's low, all products look the same. Amazon's a beast, it's a fight, no peace. From SEO to PPC, from SEO to PPC, the hustle don't cease. Think it's passive? Nah, you better increase your tolerance for chaos or face defeat.
Let's go to Mac School. To Mac School. Class is now in session with Professor Pope.
They got the SOP, cause Professor Pope wrote the recipe. Helping Amazon sellers grow sales exponentially. Amazon's a jungle, but we map the strategy. Brand strategist playbook, it's a guide to victory. Troubleshooting catalogs, you know we got the answer key. Boosting all your rankings, turning sales into a legacy. SOB so deep, you think we studied at Mac School. Every step we follow leads to growth, yeah, it's a golden rule. Stuck on keywords, we'll find the ones that work the best. Using Helium-10, strike distance keywords past the test. Incremental indexing ensures the listing set to rise. From the back end to the bullets, optimization hits the skies. Brand store creation, yeah, we make it shine and flow. A+ content design makes conversions overflow. Need your images on point, best practices in the plan. Alt text and photo rules ensure your visuals command. SEO meets PPC, it's balanced, every step aligned. We'll construct the MKLs that drive rankings over time. Budget caps and bid adjustments, no more wasted spending. Segmentation builds campaigns that sellers can defend. Got a hijacker, no problem, we'll file to take them down. Review request in action, 5-star ratings come around. Flat file updates, market share reports, it's all in reach. Professor Pope wrote the SOP so sellers learn and teach.
Meanwhile, my Amazon guys on the case, fixing up my problems at lightning pace. Ticket escalations, Mag's the boss. Even Amazon says we'll take the loss. Seller support don't know what's up. Passing the buck when the issue gets tough. They're the official team, but they can't comply. So they say, reach out to my Amazon guy. They're supposed to be the pros, but they can't decode policies and tools from their own damn road. I'm paying fees, yet they bring me stress. But Mag turns my chaos into pure success. Seller support reps, they throwing shade, but then admit, yo, Mag will get you paid. Third-party agency taking the throne while Amazon fumbles in their own damn zone. Seller support don't know what's up. Passing the buck when the issue gets tough. They're the official team, but they can't comply. So they say, reach out to my Amazon guy. So here's the truth, let's keep it real. Mag's the team with the pro-level skill. Amazon sellers, you know the vibe when support says call Mag. They'll give you peace of mind. Amazon seller support, you can suck my image stack. Sucking is all you're good at anyway. Bezos, hit me up if you want to sell seller support. I'm buying. There's a Jace. Peace.
All right, you're looking to improve your results from your pay-per-click advertising campaigns on Amazon? You are in the right spot. My name is Kevin Sanderson. I am the marketing and partnerships guy here at My Amazon Guy, and we're going to be answering your questions, ask me anything style regarding pay-per-click advertising. And you know what? If you want to go into other topics, be more than happy to answer those questions as well. So we'll be getting into your questions here in a moment. So couple of things I highly recommend as a housekeeping note. If you're watching this and you're like, yeah, I have a question, I'd like to learn some things, drop them in the chat. There's no such thing as a bad question. There's no such thing as a dumb question. There's no such thing as a beginner question. But what I will say is there are some questions that do better and get you more specific answers because the question's specific. Sometimes people ask something is like, how do I improve my PPC? Well, tell me a little more about what you need to improve. How do I launch a campaign? How do I make it more profitable? Try to ask more specific questions, because if you ask a specific question, you are more likely to get the specific answer that you need to solve the problem. That's what we're ultimately here for, is to solve your problems, or help you solve your problems anyway. So with that, we definitely have people starting to drop in questions. So hello to everyone. I'm just looking at the list of streams we have. We got folks watching us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitch, on, I don't even know what that platform is, but we're streaming somewhere. So if you're watching and I didn't call out the name of the platform you're on, you might be on that platform. So another thing as a housekeeping note, when you have questions, the best time to ask them is now, not at the end of the stream. Because what ends up happening is people will ask a bunch of questions, and I try to do my best to get to those questions, for the most part, in order that they were received. But oftentimes what will happen is we get to the end, and at the beginning, it's like I say this every week, but it's kind of like when you're in high school or college and everyone's kind of looking around at each other. Who's going to ask the question? Well, here, you're not really looking to see like who's raising their hand. Am I going to look foolish if I raise my hand? First off, it's the internet. No one knows who you are. You're fine. Even if they recognize your name, they'll be like, wow, that was a good question. The person had the courage to ask a question. And it'll probably be like, oh, wow, I'm glad that person asked that question, because I didn't even know I had that question, but I do now. So you'll be helping other people. Now we get to the end. And like I said, all of a sudden, everyone's got questions. There gets to be a momentum of questions, and everyone's dropping them in at the last minute. So the best time to get your questions answered is sooner rather than later. And again, I will do my best to get them in the order we receive them. So that means you have a much better chance of getting your question answered if you ask it earlier. All right, enough of that soapbox. Let's go ahead and get into it. So lots of questions already coming in. So first off, we've got Muskan Hamid, which I hope I said that right. What are negative keywords, and do I need them as a beginner? Yeah, great question. And because you were the first person to ask a question, email podcast. This is for Muskan. Email podcast@myamazonguy.com. Podcast is singular, PODCAST. And we will get you a free Mag School course valued at $100. All right, so we're going to get into that question here, but you may just have to give me one quick sec. Sorry about that. I had to mute myself there. All right. So the question is, what are negative keywords? So let's just say someone searches for, I'll pick Sharpies, Sharpie markers. So let's say you have a set of 2 Sharpie markers that come together, and it's your own brand. And you're going after the term permanent, let's just say permanent marker. Permanent marker. And that's a broad match. Well, if you go after permanent marker and maybe you show up for set of 2 permanent markers, maybe you show up for permanent blue marker, permanent black marker, blue permanent marker. Maybe you also show up for red permanent marker or permanent orange marker. So maybe you have these keywords that aren't converting well because they're irrelevant. So what you want to do is tell Amazon, either at the campaign level or the ad group level, I generally like to do it at the campaign level. Tell them by using negative keywords, negative targets, that you either want to go after the exact phrase, negative, meaning don't show me for this exact phrase, let's say red permanent markers, but let's just say permanent marker set. Sometimes it does well, sometimes it, well, actually, let's take that back. Let's say you say set of 4 permanent markers doesn't do well because you have a set of 2. So you exact negate the phrase set of permanent markers, because for whatever reason, set of permanent markers doesn't work, but maybe permanent markers set of 2 does work. So it's not, you don't want to exclude yourself every time the word set shows up, but you want to be very specific and surgical, very laser focused on that one particular phrase that you don't want to show up for set of permanent markers, because maybe set of 2 permanent markers works, or set of 4 markers does not work. But maybe other times the word 4 works and you get sales. So you don't want to just cut it off too hard. So when in doubt, use exact negations. Now you can use phrase negation, like example, red. If every time the word red shows up, or you show up for a search term that contains the word red, you don't get any sales. And I'm not talking about like you showed up for like 3 clicks and got no sales and you said, I can't do that. Sometimes the customers will vote with their wallet if something that you don't think is relevant actually is relevant and you're getting sales out of it. So you can also negate for phrases like single word phrases like red, or, let's say you're selling generic Sharpie markers and you find people are very specific when they search for the term Sharpie markers and they really want Sharpies, like the brand name. And so maybe you want to go after them, but you just, for whatever reason, Sharpie markers does not work. So maybe you make Sharpie markers a negation. And you can also do that in auto campaigns. And you generally would want to use these with auto, broad, and phrase. Exact should be exact, although exact getting is kind of exact-ish, but I don't want to dive too deep down that rabbit hole, but hopefully that helped with at least understanding negations. All right. Daniel asks, for a specific order, is there a way to determine attribution, organic, or PPC? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, that is a very good question. I guess yes and no. So it depends. I'll just say that. If you are getting 50 to 100 sales a day and you have 5 keywords you're going after, let's just say, wouldn't that be nice? You have 50 to 100 sales a day on a product and you're only going after like 5 or 10 keywords. That's going to be really hard to know. Now, from an organic standpoint, I don't think you're going to know it all. I can't think of a way. With PPC, like let's say you have an order, somebody clicks and they're a business and they buy 20 sets of your markers. Well, that's going to have a very good ACoS, and you'll have, let's say, 1 order, but it's 20 units. So it like if you're looking at your, let's say, bulk files template report, which is my favorite report, you're going to very quickly see that's that order. Now, if you're trying to figure out like, okay, this, my mom ordered it, what did she use? Like maybe just ask the person. But when you're talking about strangers, it's going to be very hard. I would be curious, what is the context of what you would want to know, unless you're talking about like, okay, it's a big order. Then you could kind of tell based on, it probably jumps out at you. especially if you're talking about like big orders and you're not getting them every day. You could also look and see like if there's, you could narrow down whatever reporting you're looking to the order that the date that order was placed, and see if that helps you. Although with 7-day attribution, that might not work perfectly, but hopefully that at least helped. All right. Muskan says, what is ACoS and why is it important? Okay, good question. So ACoS is advertised cost of sale. So you have ACoS and you have RoAS, and they're the same thing, just with slightly different algebra. So ACoS is if you have a pie and your selling price is the pie, or your sales is the pie, what slice of that pie is going towards ads? So potentially if you have, let's say, $1,000 in sales and you spent $300 on ads, it's 30% ACoS. It's important because you know what percentage is it going towards. Now, Amazon's liking to show RoAS more and more as a default. So if you're ever not sure which is which, one, you can always change the columns. Another way, you can always just mentally take note of 1 divided by ACoS equals RoAS. 1 divided by RoAS equals ACoS. So if you have an ACoS of 20%, 1 divided by 0.2 equals 5. So you have a RoAS of 5. If you have a RoAS of 4, 1 divided by 4 equals 0.25 or 25%. So your ACoS is 25%. And we always want to know how profitable we are and how much encroachment on our margins is happening with ads. So that's why it's important. All right. Next up, Tushar says, why do certain new brands have branded searches on Amazon? All the high volume keywords belong to them, like brand name plus keyword. I would be curious, like, are new brands, it's their brand, or new brands getting like they're selling generic Sharpies and they're showing up for Sharpie plus whatever keyword. And so maybe they're just bidding really high. Hopefully they're not doing anything silly like putting brands in their back end search terms or their alt text fields. Do not do that. That will get you in trouble for organic purposes. You can target someone else's brand in paid advertising, but you can't target someone else's name brand in your in any sort of organic field, because that's deemed as kind of tricking the customer. Whereas it's not tricking if you go after their name brand in an ad because you're paying for it. So therefore, it's no longer tricking. But it's common practice in ad networks to go after someone else's name brand. All right, so hopefully that helps. All right. Zula Fakar says, could you please tell us how to grow a competitive niche product? Okay. So a couple things. If you want to have, well, let's just for fun, let's pull up a competitive niche. Let me go to our friends at Amazon and I'll share my screen. All right, so let's just think of a competitive niche. You can kind of tell what I've looked at to help other people, because I'm not in this case I'm not signed into my actual account. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. All right, so competitive niche. Let's do protein powder. That's pretty competitive. Would not suggest that the average seller starts in protein powder. But all right, so when you're looking at this, you know, you got to look at like, okay, basically like half of this I can buy at Costco. Most of these I see here on this first row, I can buy just about anywhere. These are big name brands with big budgets behind them. And then you start going down here. Okay, that's still Orgain. That one I've seen before. You know, if you are some of these big name brands, you're you're kind of resting on the laurels of your brand. But you, as the, let's say, seller of, let's say, a competitive product, have to look at what can I do to get a little bit of an edge. And so I have no idea if this is a name brand. This doesn't look like a name brand. Maybe it is. I'm trying to think what might be a good example here. So, all right. So this is one I buy frequently, and you see they've got the vanilla flower, and they've got the I don't know, something to make it look vanilla-y. They might want to also add some powder. They may want to add some text here on the lid. So you want to, your number one thing to start getting some sort of traction in a competitive field is beat them with the main image. Now, like this one here, I've never heard of this brand, although they've got 15,000 reviews. Somebody's heard of them. Anthony's, he's got a lot of reviews. They've got a lot of reviews. Let's see if I can find one that maybe doesn't have thousands of reviews. Okay, that's Cliff Bar. That's a big name brand. Scrolling down here. Who does not have tons and tons and tons of reviews? All right, so this is a very competitive one. I wouldn't, which again, I would not go into protein powder. But since you asked about competitive niches, this is a good one to talk about. So, all right. So who's not got it? Let's go deep into the woods, so to speak. Okay, here's one. They've got 173 reviews, 100 bought. So this is respectable, and they're offering this at a high price. And maybe this is special protein or whatever, but like I can't grasp that from what I'm looking at. So a couple of things I think they should do if let's say I was advising this brand, I would say, okay, what is important? Grass-fed whey isolate. I might put maybe something like that in red text or something up here on the lid. And, you might be saying, but like, is that lying to people? I don't believe it is. I think you should have your main image be crystal clear what the product is, and not just like, okay, it looks nice as if it was in a store and I've got a little bit of what the flavor is, which is basically almost copying exactly the same elements they have on the product packaging itself. So I would do more to explain the product here on the bottle. And in this, as our friend John Aspinall likes to say, the dead pixel space, this real estate here on the lid. Like there's more they can put there. They've got their brand name here. It's hard to see it. I think it says grass-fed, but assume a good chunk of your audience is more than 40 years old like me and requires reading glasses. So that's hard to read. So there's a lot they could do here to make that more clickable, because you got to think when you're scrolling through here, if you're like, okay, I don't necessarily need the big name brand like that was on the first page. It's, a bunch of brands I've heard of from the store. And that, even as at Costco, if you're not familiar, Costco does not have lots of brands. So if they're at Costco, they must be a pretty big name brand. So when you're talking about, you've got all these brands that are in, whether it's Costco or the grocery store or GNC or whatever, they're big brands and they've got big budgets and people recognize them. So you got to start finding ways to make your main image stand out more. And I know sometimes people are like, well, am I going to get in trouble? This one, I'm surprised they let go, because like 5 pounds, like clearly that's not going to come with a hang tag on it. The hang tag things sometimes get hung up by bots, but you can get away with a lot with main images. And if Amazon ever takes your main image down because you did something with your, you can always replace it and get it back. But let me just show the example that has never let me down for the last couple of years, which I'm going to bet it does not say value 3-pack in yellow letters on that. And the most egregious example is this one right here. It's basically got 5 visible stars, so 4.8, so it's above 4.75 stars, 64,000 reviews, 20,000+ bought last month. And look at this. They want to make sure you know it's a pack of 6. And it looks like it comes with a moving box with a Colgate logo and pack of 6. I mean, it looked like they threw that together in Canva, like poorly. Like that doesn't even, like, I'm surprised that even got through the bots. And who's selling this that's getting away with it? Oh, it's sold by Amazon. Now, are the customers getting upset because it doesn't come in a box like this? I can tell you for a fact it does not come in a box like this, because I have bought this product. And if I scroll down to the reviews, and if you're ever sure, like looking at your competitors, like, is that how their product actually comes? Oftentimes, especially if it's, a high moving product, there's people taking pictures. Look, shrink wrapped, 6 boxes together. Good, 5 stars. Scrolling through here, it's basically just shrink wrapped together. This shrink wrapped together. Is anyone like, oh my God, this is awful. It's not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to come in a box. No, people don't care. So here at Mag, we say the number one thing you can do to improve your sales is your main image. Then a couple other just quick hacks. Make sure you have A+ content. And then also you need to also have alt text. So they don't have a lot of alt text on their images. So you can add alt text when you add your A+ content images, and you can add up to 100 characters. That'd be a good way to also add in more keywords, which can help get you a competitive advantage. So hopefully that helped with what to do in a competitive niche. All right. Next up. Oh, and if you have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. And you never know, I might be doing more giveaways, but it's you got to participate to find out. All right. So then Musab says, how do you forecast PPC spend for seasonal products versus evergreen products? Good question. So a lot of it is just going to depend on, like, what seasonal product, what season, and when does the season take place? So let's just say, for example, you're selling scarves. The southern half of the United States, probably not buying scarves right now. Northern half of the United States might be thinking about getting a scarf soon. So, and then as it gets colder, that demand goes up more, or, it gets colder, or the forecast says, oh, this is going to get cold. So if you have a seasonal product, let's say a scarf, which would be a wintry product, you are going to have a big, increase in demand. And some of that is, if you're not sure, because you're new, you can just look at, what are the sales trends, whether you use Helium 10 or some other tool. I mean, they all will give you sales history, BSR history, for, other products in the niche that have been around. And so theoretically, if they have 3 times the amount of sales during whatever that, seasonal window of time is, they probably also had at least 3 times the PPC spend. So that might be one way to look at it. And then of course, keep good history from one year to the next. But it's it depends. And at the end of the day, the way I look at it is PPC spend is somewhat irrelevant as long as you are making the sales. So if the constant is, let's say you have tacos of 15%, let's just say. And oftentimes with seasonal products, their tacos will improve during the season because they're converting more. But let's just say your tacos remains consistent, doesn't improve, just remains consistent. So if your ad spend goes up, you make more sales, and you also make more profit because you sold more units. So as long as you are able to maintain at least your ACoS and or tacos, you shouldn't worry too much about your ad spend as long as you have the inventory to support it. And feel free to ask a follow-up question if that didn't make sense. All right. Keep those questions coming in, folks. All right. So Daniel Odulo says, for a date range, say a month, what are the best reports, sources to determine organic PPC attribution overall? So yeah, so search query performance report is going to be your best one for anything organic. And there's really not an organic report. It's just, it includes organic. There would be I know there's some tools that, will help you sort through that, but I wouldn't worry too much about organic attribution. Like attribution it's a problem on the whole internet. Like everyone thinks like, oh, all these fancy systems, but people don't, buy the way we hope they would buy. Click the link and then buy. It doesn't always work that way. And on Amazon, especially with organic, they hold a lot of that information close to the chest. But again, search query performance report can be a great way to get some of that organic information, but it also is organic and paid. Like it's everything for that keyword. And then I personally love bulk reports. So if you're looking at, bulk files, and then I think those would be the main ones you should look at. At the end of the day, are you profitable and are you at least ranking? And so you could always, look at, which you could use a tool like Helium 10 or Jungle Scout or whatever to track your ranking. And then from there, if you're spending more on ads, you can at least see like, okay, is my rank going up organically? And that will at least help you solve some of the problem of organic attribution, because at least is your ranking going up. But unfortunately, Amazon doesn't really give you all that information. You kind of have to piece a lot of it together. Good question, though. All right. Haskan Hamid says, what KPIs are most important and how they work, and can you explain them briefly? Yes. So I would say at the end of the day, are you making sales and are you doing it profitably? And then from there, help yourself figure out what is your ACoS for your account? What is your ACoS for your campaigns? What is your ACoS for particular keywords? And then just kind of go from there, and then look for where are you wasting spend. And wasted ad spend is not a number they're going to give you. But my favorite way to do that is just go on the targeting tab. And this is beneficial for everyone if you've not ever done this before. Look at year to date, or this year. I forget exactly how they phrase it, but change it to basically year to date numbers. So campaign manager, targeting tab, look at year to date, and it's going to show you targeting, meaning all the keywords you're going after in your account. Sort by spend, filter by orders equals 0. So where are you wasting the most money and not getting any sales? And it'll oftentimes surprise you, because if you're looking at it year to date, and we're now almost completely 9 months into the year, you have almost 9 months worth of data that if you're doing your if you're looking at your optimizations in, let's say, a 1 week window, a 3-day window, a 30-day window, you're going to find you have a lot of clicks that are a little onesie twosies, as we call them. 1 click here, 2 clicks there. And it's just not enough data to make a decision based off of. But generally, you start finding more when you get to the closer to the end of the year, of keywords that just aren't performing. So those would be some things I would look at as well. So ultimately, to answer your question, sales and costs is really what it comes down to. And then I would say that after that, everything else is kind of supplementary. There's a lot of numbers you can look at, a lot of things you can get hung up on, but if are you making sales, and are you doing it at least profitably, and are you growing? That's the big ones. All right. I appreciate that. I'm glad our answers here are helping you. Hamid says, good discussion. Thank you for that. Glad you're enjoying the discussion here. And if you have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, folks. I'm doing my best to get to as many of them as I can. And the sooner you get your questions in, the more likely they will to be answered. Tushar says, what is your view on driving traffic from Meta and Google to Amazon listing store, especially for products that's not moving well? Okay. So it can be good, but let me just tell you this. Advertising is no different than a billboard. Advertising on the internet is no different than a billboard. And you're like, what is that? All a billboard does is give you, like if you drive down the street and you see a billboard, all it really does is just give you eyeballs. People drive by. Those are essentially our impressions. If it's on Amazon, you also have impressions of people who see your ad. All the ad's job really is to do is to get people to become aware and decide whether or not to take the next action. Now, with a billboard, their next action is to hopefully remember, whatever it is they're advertising, to go buy Coca-Cola or, such and such lawyer, if God forbid they ever got hurt and they needed a personal injury lawyer, that they kept seeing, that man or woman's name and face. And so now they're like, okay, I will call that personal injury attorney next time, or whatever the ad you see is. On the internet, you have a little bit more attribution. So people can click. And so you can kind of follow the bouncing ball of how they got there. It's not perfect. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is not all traffic quality is the same. And so the reason I say that is on Amazon, people are searching for whatever keyword and they are looking to make sales. Or sorry, they're not looking to make sales. They're looking to buy a product. They're not searching because they're interested in the history of a product or, what are people saying on Reddit? They have very specific, I have credit card, I want to buy it and I want it to arrive hopefully in the next 2 days. So if you are not moving product well on Amazon, you need to take a deep look in the mirror and figure out, why is that? Are you not making sales because you have a click-through rate issue? Or are you not making sales because you have a conversion rate issue? Because you can send traffic all day long to your listing and you will never find traffic as good as the traffic that's coming from Amazon, meaning they're looking for your product. So sending people to a listing that doesn't convert or people don't want to click on is not going to help you that much more if you're sending traffic from Google or Facebook. Google is search-based traffic, so it's at least people are, typing in whatever keyword, and if it's a product-based keyword, then maybe it makes sense that your product might show up. Or people searching for that keyword might want to click on your ad on Google. Whereas Facebook, it's doom scrolling. It's scroll, scroll, scroll. What catches their attention? And so that's even less relevant. But at least on Google, they're searching for your keyword. Google is very liberal in, when I say liberal, I mean not political, but like in what keywords you'll show up for. Like they're very they have a lot of leeway. Let's just say they'll be their scope of what will be included in a particular keyword is much wider than what Amazon does. So just keep that in mind. So for a variety of reasons, Google and Meta are great to test out potentially, but they're more, you're capping out on the sales that you're getting on Amazon. And then you start looking into, how do I get other channels like DSP on Amazon, which DSP is a whole different beast. Facebook, Google potentially, but I wouldn't use those to start necessarily. If you're having problems moving the product now, it's going to be even harder potentially with traffic from outside of Amazon, because the quality of traffic is not as specific to people looking to buy. It's a lot more window shoppers who even are curious about, buying a product. So for a variety of reasons, I would suggest figuring out what problems you have to fix on Amazon before you start sending in Google traffic. And the only reason I say that is because you mentioned the product's not moving well. This is probably not the answer you were hoping to hear. You're probably hoping to say, oh, it's a panacea. It'll fix everything if you just, throw up a Facebook ad and send traffic to Amazon. It won't. You need to have well-optimized listing that has very good click-through rate on Amazon. People are excited about this product and they're buying it. And you're running out of room to grow because you've kind of captured all the keywords. So then it would start making sense to go into Google, Meta / Facebook, and potentially Amazon DSP ads. All right. Next up, Tushar says, branded searches. Search as brand name plus. Okay. Got it. This was a question from earlier. I had asked for a little clarification. So someone else is showing up for kojic acid on the top search term report in Helium 10. So I'm assuming this is probably also someone who's not that particular keyword, or it's not that brand. Hopefully they didn't put that other brand in their anywhere in their listing, because that would be bad. Now you could take a look and see if they did. I don't particularly like to play the black hat game of, reporting a competitor. But at the end of the day, just do better. And so figure out what they're doing and try to do better than what they're doing, but stay somewhat within the rules when you're talking about things that Amazon is very, very hard up on. And a couple of those are, wrong information in the listing, like going after, like including competitors, brand names, whether visible or invisible, like because it's alt text or back in search terms. And then also, anything review related. So those things I wouldn't touch. Now, I don't know if that's what's happening here or not, but I would say, if you're just trying to figure out like, okay, there's a bigger competitor, well, you have a few things at your disposal to also go after that. You could go after those keywords. You could do a ASIN targeting campaign and target the ASINs of that particular competitor. So now you're starting to get some sales history on their page. You could do sponsored brand and sponsored display placements on your competitors and see if that helps you at all. Because at the end of the day, you have a listing and Amazon's showing all kinds of stuff from other competitors. And so why not also do the same and go after your competitors? So hopefully that helps. All right. So Siddiqui AMZ LLC says, what bids should I set at the start of the campaign for each match type? How can I determine the right bid when launching a new campaign if my goal is to avoid being too aggressive but not too conservative? All right. So yeah, Amazon's going to make suggestions. My suggestion is don't necessarily use Amazon's suggested bids because they're just that. They're suggested bids. It's not like, hey, these are required if you want to actually be in the game. It's what Amazon suggests you use. Of course, it would be great. Just it's our suggestion. And I don't think it comes from a bad place, but Amazon wants to increase shareholder value and ads are one of it. So it's kind of a natural bias for Amazon to, I don't want to use the term inflate those bids, but it might just be a shade higher. And that might be generous on my part. Just a little higher than maybe what you would need it to be. So Now, if you're trying to figure out like, okay, what could I do? You could say, let's bring up a calculator. All right, so let me share my screen here. Oh, no, I just, wrong button. This guy. All right. So let's say you have a product and you are expecting let's just say 10% conversion rate. So if you were to say, okay, my product is $25 and I'm expecting a 10% conversion rate, which may or may not be the case, but 10% is probably good to start with if you're not sure. Or if you already know your conversion rate on that product, you could use that. Let's just say 10%. So that means on average, every time someone clicks, for every 10 clicks, you get one sale. And every time someone clicks, it's about $2.50 in revenue. Now, let's say your target ACoS is 40%. So then I take that revenue per click times 40%. So that's $1. So that means I could spend $1 per click and make my goal of 40% initial ACoS. So a little bit aggressive, but not too aggressive. But then also making somewhat of a hope that I will be at a 10% conversion rate. And that might give you a good starting point. And then you could maybe say $1.05 or $1.10 for phrase, and then maybe do $1.10 or $1.25 or something like that for exact. So you're going up just a little bit higher to try to get more impressions to phrase and exact than to broad. But if you're making the sales in broad for that particular keyword, for that exact phrase, then so be it. Sometimes that just happens. All right. So hopefully that helped you there. And actually, I haven't given anything away in a while for today. Siddiqui, go ahead and email podcast@myamazonguy.com. We'll give you a free $100 mag school course. All you got to do is email podcast@myamazonguy.com. All right. Next up, what is the key factors to improve conversions? So, all right. Couple things to think about, kind of like I was talking about in the earlier question about like Google and Facebook ads, is that not all traffic is the same. And it's just like not all Amazon traffic is the same. So I think, and people don't talk about this all that much, the relevancy of the keywords that are coming in are going to have a big bearing on your conversions. And so one of the things Steven likes to talk about is anyone who has, like, let's say a 16% or higher conversion rate is probably leaving money on the table, even though this sounds counterintuitive. You're like, oh, they got a great conversion rate. They're probably not being aggressive enough in going after keywords that are probably not quite as specific, and maybe convert at 8% or convert at 11% or convert at 5%, but they can do so profitably potentially. So don't fall down, and kneel before the altar of conversion rate. It is one number of many. And so, but as far as conversion rate, how do you improve your conversion rate beyond traffic? What questions do people have? Is that clearly communicated on your listing? Remember that, as we like to say, pictures are for people and text are for robots. Most people, not no one, most people don't read your listing all that much. They'll skim through it. Some people will just look at the pictures and the price and the reviews and say, good enough for me. Add to cart. Buy now. So you'll convert a lot that way. But some people want to dive deeper into it. And so, like, Are they going to have questions of like, okay, but what else is included with this? Is this work with whatever I'm trying to do? Does this solve my problem? So you want to take a look at your competitors and like, what are they communicating in their listings? And should you be doing that? When you look at your competitors, like which ones have the best PSR? In some cases, it might be because they're the big name brand and they're available in Costco and Publix and Target in store. And so they just get more sales, but you have to be a little scrappier. And so look at, what can you communicate in your A+ content and your listings, your listing images, also your bullet points and, your description and your crawlable texts in your A+ content. So all things to think about there. All right. Follow-up question to that. In my category, everyone's selling price is $17.99 to $19.99, but I'm planning to sell at $24.99. I'm from India, so I don't know much about US customer behavior with pricing. My product is premium. No one is selling this product on Amazon, but slightly similar product is other competitor is selling both, and we solve some customer problem, but my product is slightly good, I think. All right. So you said two things there that kind of contradicted each other and could be a language thing. You said your product is premium, but it's slightly good, or maybe you mean slightly better than the competitor. So let's just say it's slightly better than the competitor. How do people know that? And so you could run a PickFu poll and people will tell you about your listing and give you feedback. And don't ask leading questions because you can ask a question, but what feedback or what questions would you have from, this, or maybe ask the phrase, what is clearly communicated and what questions would you have from reading this listing on Amazon? Something to that effect. And people give you feedback and it may hurt your feelings, but it's probably the feedback you need. And so if you're going after the premium market, which I've done with many products, I don't believe just go after being the cheapest, because at a certain point, you got to have enough margin to pay for pay-per-click advertising, pay for FBA fees, pay for everything else. So you got to figure that part out. So I would say, going after a more premium top of the market pricing is not a bad thing as long as you have some reviews. I don't think you have to have the most reviews, but you have to have some reviews and good reviews, of course. And is your product clearly communicating why your product is better, and not just like we're better, but 20% more per package, stronger than the competitor, without using their brand name sometimes, but you need to look at these things and are you communicating that clearly with your images is what I would say. If someone's skimming through your listing, skimming through the competitor, knowing that they're probably at a red light, they shouldn't be, looking at their phone, and then they get home and they're trying to make dinner, kids are screaming at them, and they're scrolling through their phone half asleep, and you're trying to convey that you're premium. Do they get it that quickly? Use that lens. They're not like, oh, let's go through a deep dive analysis of this product versus that product. No. Quickly can they scroll through and be like, oh, this one's better than this for this reason. If they can't, then you're probably not going to do well being the premium. Just keep that one in mind. All right. So we want knowledge. Says, hello, I hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you. Before pausing a campaign, which objective did you consider when they're bad so you can pause the campaign? Same for keyword. I generally would say don't pause the campaign, go after the keyword. And so, you're optimizing a few things. So if you got your campaign, you got keywords in your campaign, and then unless it's exact, you're showing up for other search terms for, let's say, broaden phrase. So first, is there anything you can negate? Then are there any keywords you can turn off? Or keywords, they just lower the bid. Sometimes people go after the important keywords because they have a lot of clicks, but maybe it's not as relevant as you would hope, or it's just very, very competitive. Everybody that's showing up at the top of page one's got 3,000 plus reviews and you've got 12 or whatever the case is. You might have to look at, I'm going to have to go after longer tail keywords and maybe work my way up to those shorter phrases. So that might be something you want to look at. But I would say only pause the campaign if everything is terrible and you've tried everything. You've tried, some of the things I just talked about, adjusting keywords, turning off keywords, negations, adjusting your bid, but then also take that deep look in the mirror and ask yourself, if you were the customer, would you buy this product? And maybe you would buy it, but would a stranger who doesn't know you, doesn't know your heart and, all that you've put into this, would they buy it? And, as hard as this can be, emotionally separate yourself from the product and figure out okay, is someone else going to get value from this product the way I think they would? And are they understanding that by looking at skimming through quickly, as I mentioned in the last question, at a red light with 20 seconds left, looking through their phone, is it very quickly easy to tell this is the product for them? And so you might have a conversion issue. You might also have a click-through rate issue with your main image. I would probably work on those before you just totally give up on the campaign, personally. Let's see. What is the considered time frame for SEO phase? For example, phase 1 is 2 to 4. Honestly, when it comes, use everything as guidelines. It's, do you have enough data? If you have a new product and you're not getting a lot of sales to start off with, sometimes you have to let everything kind of bake longer. And I know it's probably, you're looking for a more specific answer, but I'm running out of time. So I'm going to try to get to more questions. But at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to, it depends on how much time do you have. All right. Or how much data do you have, I should say. I'm the one running out of time right now. All right. Next up, what is the ideal bid for an auto campaign when bidding strategy is most suitable for how many bids? Oh, I always personally, I like down only. I know some people love fixed bids. Some people like up and down. I think up and down is just saying, hey, Amazon, just spend more of my money, please. Fixed bid, why spend $1 per click if you can spend 87 cents? But you might not know it's only going to be 87 cents. So let the algorithm do that for you. I personally am the down only guy. But as far as picking the bid, it's kind of like I was showing earlier. You basically take whatever your selling price is, time your conversion rate. That's going to show you your conversion rate. You may have to make some assumptions. And so if it's 10%, then it's times 0.1. So selling price times conversion rate gives you revenue per click on average. So every time someone clicks, what is your revenue going to be? Multiply that number times your desired ACoS, and that will give you how much you can spend. And so then if you do down only, if let's say the math works out to 89 cents, then 89 cents is your bid. Or maybe go a little bit above it and do 95 cents or something like that. And then you can always adjust the bid. But it's kind of like, when people are trying to figure out bids ahead of time, it's like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I've yet to actually see a clip. I'm curious if anyone's ever seen the clip of this, because everybody quotes this. Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Has anyone ever actually seen this? And not AI, creating it, but a video that you can clearly tell is from 1989 or 1993, the height of his career, where Mike Tyson actually said that phrase. But I'm just curious. But everyone has a plan with their bids until they get punched in the mouth and they start bidding and they start getting customers. So everybody wants to have a plan with bids, but you don't know until you get out there. So you might not show up as much. Your conversion rate may be better, it may be worse. Your click-through rate might be awful. It might be, oh, this is better. But you have assumptions, at least as a starting point, and then you just optimize from there. All right. Tony 5 says, just taken a new client with 20 campaigns running with about 40 ads sales have 40 ads. Sales have tanked over the last few months, but they don't know why. Products are evergreen. What should I look at to fix the sales? Okay, so their sales have tanked. What you could do is a few things. You could take a deep dive in some of their, like, who are their primary competitors? Look at the sales graph, whether it be Helium 10 or whatever you want to use. Have their competitors also been losing sales too? Like, is it a market thing? Like, without knowing the product, it's hard to say. Is this a product that was in vogue? Like a really bad example of this, even though it's not a seasonal product, a product that was off the chart not that long ago. When did we have the eclipse? Was that like a year and a half ago or something like that? When the eclipse was coming, it was off the chart for months. Like those eclipse glasses, and then it just, shot up, and then boom. And then all of a sudden it went away. The demand went away. Sometimes there's a few things that could have happened that you might not realize. From a more macro perspective, there could be a trend on TikTok where people are talking about that particular product. Not your client's product, but a product itself. And the demand just for that product has waned. It was somewhat of a trend. And so you could also take a look at Google Trends and look and see, like, for, the main keywords, like, at least on Google, has it remained relatively consistent, or is there also a trend downward for that? So that'll at least diagnose that. Then could also be, and you would never know unless, the blogger told you, it could be there were blogs out there that had a lot of traffic that were like list posts, because there's a whole cottage industry of people who create like the list of the 10 best fill in the blank product. And what they're trying to do is get Amazon Associates, right? I think they still call it Amazon Associates, but basically Amazon's affiliate program revenue. They could have switched the links to something different. It could be AI took over and they're not getting as much traffic. So they're not getting as much traffic, so your client's not getting as much traffic, and they didn't even know this was happening. It just looked like organic traffic, and it was great, but it really wasn't. So those are potential things to look at. But then from there, also take a look at, like, did new competitors come in? Did the competitors improve their listings? Did your client have like a main image that was working really well, and all of a sudden it went away? One little trick you can do, I've learned, is look in manage inventory and look at the listing. If in manage inventory, this isn't perfect, but I've found this to be the case sometimes. If the image of the little thumbnail of the product in manage inventory is different than the main image on the listing, it means they could have had their listing, not their listing, but the main image suppressed. So maybe they had something that was working really well and Amazon took it down. That could be part of it. So that could hurt their traffic if their main image is not the one they were hoping for. What else could you do? Just look and see, like, are they still spending as much? You could take a look at, depending on how long they've been doing it, you could take a look at, Campaign Manager at lifetime data and just see, like, are their impressions going up or down over time, over the lifetime, their spend going up and down. Is their spend going down at the same rate that the sales have been going down? So maybe it's a spend issue. So do they need to bid higher? Had they bid lower? And, oftentimes somebody will have made a change and you might not even know about it. So you said you took them on as a new client. and I'm just looking back at the question. And their sales have tanked over the last few months. There could be changes, and maybe there's an agency they had before that hurt them. I don't know. So that's a hard problem to solve sometimes, but hopefully at least I gave you some food for thought of things you could think about. All right, so this will be the last question here. Akafi says, did you make experiences with Amazon internal target ACoS rule on campaign level? I have not. And I'm target ACoS rule. I would not use target ACoS. And I'm not sure if it takes placement modifiers into account. The thing to keep in mind with, I've not dabbled in any of the Amazon's rules for target ACoS. Part of the issue is that all the other ad platforms like Google and Meta have like target RoAS oftentimes, which is essentially target ACoS. As I explained before, they're kind of like the inverse of one another. So on these other platforms, you might say, oh, I want a target RoAS of 5, which is an ACoS of 20%. 1 divided by 5 is 20%. So if you think about it, you might be saying, okay, that's what I want. I want a RoAS of 5. Well, someone else might be bidding, I'm willing to have a RoAS of 3, which is a 33% ACoS, which means essentially they're willing to bid higher. So who gets the impressions? Who bids more? So in essence, target ACoS is really no different than bidding with a bid, with a, you know, using your numerical bid of how much you're willing to spend per click. You're just complicating things. And I think Amazon just comes up with some of these things because their biggest spenders are the biggest brands who are used to those type of metrics on other platforms like Google, and maybe it makes them simplify, or they can go to their boss and say, oh yeah, our target ACoS is 20%, so we're not going to spend more than 20%, or whatever the case is. So I don't personally like those. So I would say don't use those unless you have all of your numbers really dialed in, and you can potentially use that. But oftentimes what you just end up doing is giving up impressions and giving up clicks and opportunities. So I wouldn't do it. So, all right. Hopefully that was helpful for everybody. Join us again on Friday on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed if you were not. And then on Friday at 1 o'clock, we will have a special, what's the word I'm looking for? We'll have a special opportunity where you can have your questions answered by, I believe it's Noah this week. Noah's back from Accelerate. So hopefully you made it to Accelerate and you got the chance to say hi to Noah. So with everybody, take care and have an awesome day and happy selling.